You know something strange about getting old? The longer you live, the more things you own, and the harder it becomes to let any of them go. I'm 90 years old now. At this age, you start noticing things that younger people rarely think about. Not because you're wiser than everyone else. No, it's because you've had more time to watch life quietly unfold and sometimes quietly fall apart. And one thing I've noticed again and again is this. By the time people reach retirement, many of them are carrying far more than they should. Not just in their houses, in their hearts, in their minds, in their habits. They think they've been building a life. But sometimes, without realizing it, they've been building a cage. I didn't understand that when I was young. Most of us don't. When you're 30 or 40, life feels like a long road stretching endlessly into the distance. You collect things along the way. Bigger house, nicer car, another project, another responsibility, another promise for someday, and it all feels normal. But then one day you wake up, and the road behind you is longer than the road ahead. That realization can shake a person in ways they never expected, because suddenly the question changes. It's no longer, what else can I add to my life? The question becomes, what is still worth carrying? Let me tell you something that startled me not long ago. A while back, I came across the story of a man who lived to be 106 years old. Imagine that for a moment. 106. That's more birthdays than most of us will ever see. More years watching families grow, watching neighborhoods change, watching the world slowly turn into something new. And near the end of his life, someone asked him what advice he would give to people who were approaching retirement. Do you know what he said? He said there are 10 things people should sell before they retire. Sell, or give away, or simply let go of. When I first heard that, I thought he meant practical things. You know, financial advice. The sort of list you'd expect from a retirement planner. But the more I listened, the more I realized something deeper. Those 10 things weren't really about money. They were about freedom. Because if you live long enough, you eventually discover something most people don't see while they're busy building their lives. The heaviest things we carry are often the things we once believed we couldn't live without. And that idea stayed with me. It sat quietly in my thoughts for days. Maybe because I'm 90 now. And at this stage of life, you begin taking inventory, not just of what you own, but of what still deserves space in your remaining years. So today, I want to walk through those 10 things with you, not like a lecture, not like a list in a magazine, but like a conversation between someone who has lived long enough to make mistakes and someone who might still have time to avoid them. And if you're new here, welcome to What the Old Told. This is a place where we slow down for a moment and listen to the kinds of lessons that usually arrive very late in life. If these kinds of stories matter to you, if you believe wisdom shouldn't disappear with the people who lived it, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us keep sharing these conversations, and you might just find a few lessons here that make the road ahead a little lighter. Now, the first thing that old man talked about might surprise you. It's the house. Yes, the house. For most people, the house is the proudest symbol of their life's work. The place where children grew up, the place where Christmas mornings happen, the place where dinners stretched late into the evening with laughter and noise filling every room. A house is never just wood and brick. It becomes a container for memory. But here's something I've watched happen more times than I can count. The children grow up, they move away, the noise fades, and suddenly that same house, the one that once felt barely big enough, becomes too large for the life that remains inside it. I once knew a man in our neighborhood who lived in a big 4-bedroom home. Beautiful place. Raised his whole family there. 5 children running through the hallways for decades. But by the time he was in his 80s, he only used 3 rooms: the kitchen, the bedroom, and the bathroom. The rest of the house had turned into something else entirely. Empty space. Dust on furniture nobody touched anymore. Stairs that felt steeper every year. But when his children suggested he move somewhere smaller, closer to them, he refused. He would say, "This house holds my whole life." And I understood what he meant. But I also wondered something he never asked himself. Do our memories really live inside a building, or do they live inside us? Because a house can slowly turn into something dangerous without us realizing it. It can become a museum of our past. And sometimes we spend more energy protecting that museum than living the life we still have. Now, the second burden people carry into retirement often sits somewhere else entirely. At the marina, or in the garage, or tucked away in a storage unit. I'm talking about expensive toys. A boat someone used to take out every weekend. An RV that promised grand adventures across the country. A workshop full of tools from a hobby that once felt exciting, but hasn't been touched in years. There's nothing wrong with these things when they're being used. But time has a quiet way of changing our lives. The boat sits in the water 12 months a year, and maybe leaves the dock 5 times. The RV waits patiently for a road trip that never quite happens. The hobby equipment gathers dust while we tell ourselves we'll get back to it one day. But those things never really sleep. They ask for maintenance, insurance, storage, attention. And slowly something strange happens. The thing we once bought for freedom becomes another responsibility. Every possession in your life asks something from you. A little time, a little money, a little space in your mind. And when you reach retirement, that space becomes more valuable than ever, which leads to another small but surprisingly common burden: the second car. During working years, 2 cars make perfect sense. 2 jobs, 2 schedules. Children going in different directions every afternoon. But once retirement arrives, life slows down. 2 people living in the same home rarely need to be in 2 different places at exactly the same time. And yet, that second car remains in the driveway, parked, waiting, insurance bills arriving every year, oil changes for a vehicle that barely moves. And sometimes I think about how many beautiful experiences sit quietly, trapped inside the value of things we never use. A parked car, or a memory made somewhere far away. A machine waiting for a hypothetical need. Or a moment you'll still be smiling about years from now. These first few things might sound simple. A house, a boat, a car. But they reveal something deeper about the way we build our lives. Sometimes the things we worked hardest to obtain slowly become the things that hold us in place. And if retirement is meant to be a chapter of greater freedom, then perhaps the real question isn't what else we should add to our lives. Perhaps the real question is what we should finally feel brave enough to release, because the physical things are only the beginning. The heavier burdens people carry into retirement aren't always sitting in their garages. More often, they're sitting quietly inside their relationships, their identities, and the stories they tell themselves about who they are. But the truth is, the heaviest things people carry into retirement are rarely sitting in their garages or driveways. They sit much deeper than that. They sit inside relationships, inside habits, and sometimes inside the quiet stories we've been telling ourselves for 40 or 50 years. One of the hardest lessons I learned as a mother, and later as a grandmother, is that love can sometimes disguise itself as something else. Control, rescue, protection. When our children are small, it's our job to protect them. We guide them. We catch them when they fall. We fix problems they don't yet know how to solve. That's what parenting is supposed to look like. But something interesting happens as the years pass. The children grow up. They become adults with their own homes, their own careers, their own mistakes waiting patiently for them. And yet many parents never quite make the transition. They continue stepping in, solving, fixing, rescuing. I've watched this happen many times over the decades. A grown son calls asking for help with money. A daughter struggles with a decision, and the parents quietly take over the situation. At first it feels loving, generous, responsible. But over time, something subtle begins to happen. The child stops learning how to carry their own life. Not because they're incapable, but because someone else keeps lifting the weight before they feel it. I remember a woman I knew years ago whose son came to her again and again whenever life became difficult. Investments gone wrong, bills piling up, opportunities that didn't turn out the way he hoped. Every time she helped him, every single time, she told herself she was being a good mother, and perhaps in many ways she was. But one evening she admitted something to me in a quiet voice I'll never forget. She said, "I'm starting to wonder if helping him all these years actually made his life smaller." That sentence stayed with me. Because love is powerful, but love without boundaries can quietly trap two people at once, and retirement changes the equation. There are loans for houses, loans for cars, loans for education, but there are no loans for retirement. Our children often have decades ahead of them to rebuild, to adjust, to learn how to stand on their own. But the time left for us becomes more precious with every passing year. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is step back and allow their children to discover their own strength. Now, there is another burden people rarely talk about when they imagine retirement, and that one lives inside our identity. For most of our lives, when someone asks who we are, the answer comes quickly. I'm a teacher. I'm an engineer. I run a small business. I work construction. We spend decades building our sense of purpose around what we do every morning when the alarm clock rings. Work gives our days structure. It gives us recognition. It gives us a place in the world. But when retirement arrives, something surprising can happen. The job disappears overnight. And suddenly, a person wakes up one morning with a question they've never had to ask before. Who am I now? I've seen strong, capable people struggle with that question more than they ever expected. People who spent 40 or 50 years being respected in their professions suddenly feel invisible. The world moves forward without needing them in the same way it once did. That transition can feel unsettling, even frightening. Because when work defines your identity for most of your life, removing it can feel like losing a part of yourself. I remember a man in our community who had been a doctor for nearly 5 decades. People trusted him with their health, their fears, their families. He was respected everywhere he went. But after he retired, he once told me something very honest. He said the hardest part wasn't stopping the work. It was realizing he had forgotten who he was without it. That realization forced him to rediscover parts of himself he hadn't explored since he was young. Music, gardening, long walks where nobody needed anything from him. Slowly, he found a different rhythm of life. But it took time. Which is why I believe the wisest thing we can do before retirement arrives is begin discovering who we are beyond our job titles. Because if our entire identity rests on our profession, then retirement can feel less like freedom and more like disappearance. But even deeper than identity, there is another weight people carry into later life. Old resentments, grudges that have quietly survived decades. If you live long enough, disagreements are inevitable. Families misunderstand one another. Friends say things they shouldn't have said. Pride hardens into silence. And sometimes two people can spend years, sometimes even decades, not speaking over something that once felt important. But time has a way of exposing the strange nature of these conflicts. The anger remains vivid, yet the original reason for the argument slowly fades. I once knew 2 brothers who stopped speaking to each other when they were still young men. Something about a business deal that went wrong. Something about money and accusations and wounded pride. For 30 years, they lived in the same city. 30 years of holidays that never included both of them. 30 years of family members quietly navigating the distance between them. And do you know the saddest part? Near the end of their lives, neither of them could even clearly explain what the original argument had been about. All that remained was the habit of silence. When one of them passed away, the other attended the funeral quietly. He stood there for a long time, staring at the coffin. Later, someone asked him what he was thinking. He said, "I wish I had remembered sooner that life was shorter than my pride." That sentence still echoes in my mind, because resentment is a strange companion. It asks us to carry emotional weight for years, sometimes for half a lifetime. And what does it give us in return? Distance, regret, missed conversations that will never happen again. If you reach 90 like I have, you begin to notice how quickly the people around you disappear one by one. Friends, neighbors, family members. At some point, the argument that once felt so important suddenly feels very small compared to the silence that follows someone's absence. Which is why I often tell younger people something they rarely expect to hear. Forgiveness is not always about the other person. Sometimes it's simply about setting down a burden you've been carrying far too long. Because retirement, if we are lucky enough to reach it, should not be filled with old anger and unfinished arguments. It should be filled with lighter things, peaceful mornings, honest conversations, and the quiet understanding that time is too valuable to spend guarding wounds that no longer need protecting. And yet there is still another invisible burden many people carry into the later chapters of their lives, a quieter one, but sometimes even heavier. The constant, exhausting worry about what other people might think. And that quiet worry about what other people think often leads us to another burden many people carry much longer than they should: the need to control everything. When you're young, Control can feel like responsibility. You plan carefully. You make decisions for your family. You guide your children, protect them from danger, try to steer their lives away from mistakes you once made yourself. For a long time, it feels like love. But as the years pass, something changes. The people around you grow into lives of their own. Your children become parents. Your friends make choices you might not agree with. The world moves forward in ways you never expected. And yet many people continue holding tightly to the idea that they must direct everything. I remember a moment with my daughter many years ago that taught me this lesson more clearly than anything else. She was raising her children, busy and tired the way young parents often are. And I had opinions about everything. What the children were eating, what schools they were attending, how late they stayed up, what television shows they watched. I thought I was helping. One afternoon, she sat across from me at the kitchen table and spoke very gently. She said, "Mom, I love you, but these are my children. You have to let me raise them." There was no anger in her voice, just honesty. But I won't lie to you, it hurt. Because when you've spent your whole life protecting someone, it can feel painful to step back and watch them walk their own path. You want to catch them before they fall. You want to fix problems before they appear. But here's the truth, life eventually teaches us. You can offer wisdom. You can share your experiences. But you cannot live another person's life for them. The tighter you try to hold everything together, the more people begin to slip away. Not because they don't love you, but because every human being needs space to make their own choices, even the wrong ones. Learning to release control is one of the quiet skills of growing older. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you begin trusting the people you raised. Now, there is another burden people carry that often hides behind something that sounds noble: perfection. When we're younger, perfection can feel like discipline, high standards, pride in our work, wanting things done properly. But if you live long enough, you begin to see the shadow side of perfection. It can quietly steal courage. I have known people who spent years waiting for the perfect moment to start something important, writing a book, learning an instrument, taking a trip they dreamed about. But the perfect moment rarely arrives. Life is messy. Schedules change, health shifts, circumstances move in directions we never predicted, and perfectionism whispers a dangerous idea into our ears. Wait a little longer. Prepare a little more. Start when everything is just right. But years pass quickly under that kind of thinking. I once knew a man who loved music deeply. He talked about learning the piano for nearly 20 years. He even bought a beautiful instrument and placed it in the corner of his living room. Every time someone asked if he was learning to play, he would smile and say, "Soon." Soon turned into 5 years, then 10, then 15. Eventually, arthritis began stiffening his hands, and the dream quietly slipped away before he ever played the first real song. Perfection had convinced him that beginning imperfectly was somehow worse than never beginning at all. But life doesn't reward perfect preparation. Life rewards movement, small steps, clumsy beginnings, mistakes that slowly turn into skill. When you reach 90, like I have, you understand something very simple. A life filled with imperfect attempts is far richer than a life spent waiting for ideal conditions. And that brings me to the final burden people carry into retirement. Perhaps the heaviest one of all. It's a word we use so casually that we barely notice its power. Someday I'll take that trip. Someday I'll learn that new skill. Someday I'll tell someone how much they mean to me. Someday I'll fix that relationship. Someday I'll start living the life I've been imagining. The trouble with someday is that it always sounds reasonable. It feels patient, responsible, even wise. But there is something quietly dangerous about it. Someday is not a day on the calendar. It's a promise the present makes to the future, without any guarantee that the future will actually arrive the way we expect. At 90 years old, I've attended many funerals, more than I can count now. Friends I thought I would grow old beside. Neighbors whose laughter once filled our streets. People who made plans for things they believed would happen later. Life has a way of reminding us that later is never as certain as we believe. That realization changes how you see time. Suddenly, the ordinary moments feel more precious. A conversation with a friend, a phone call you've been meaning to make, a trip you've always imagined but never quite scheduled. When you're young, you think life is made of years. But when you grow older, you understand something different. Life is made of moments that quietly pass while we are busy postponing them. Which is why, if there is one piece of wisdom I wish more people understood before retirement arrives, it's this. The goal of the later years is not to accumulate more things. It is to travel lighter. Lighter in possessions, lighter in pride, lighter in regret. Because the freedom people imagine retirement will bring does not appear automatically. It only appears when we are brave enough to release the weights we've been carrying for far too long. And sometimes the most important step toward a fuller life is simply deciding that someday should begin today. You know, when you live as long as I have, you start to see that most of the big lessons in life don't arrive with fireworks. They show up quietly, through ordinary days, small decisions, and moments when you realize something inside you has changed. The heart of what we've been talking about today really comes down to this. Life keeps asking us to adjust our expectations, especially as we get older. Not because we've done something wrong, but because time moves people, circumstances, and even our own hearts in new directions. When you're younger, you think life will follow a certain script. You imagine how your children will act, how your retirement will look, how friendships will stay the same. But somewhere along the way, you learn that peace doesn't come from controlling those things. It comes from learning how to stand gently in the middle of them, with a little more patience, a little more understanding, and sometimes a little more distance. For many of us in our later years, that lesson becomes very real. Maybe it shows up in the way our adult children live their lives. Maybe it shows up in friendships that drift apart, or in quieter homes than we once had. Maybe it appears in the way we start protecting our energy a bit more carefully. And that's not failure, that's wisdom. Real peace in this stage of life often comes from choosing where our heart rests. A cup of coffee in the morning, a phone call with a grandchild, a walk around the block, paying the bills without panic, letting go of an old argument, sleeping well at night because we stopped carrying what was never ours to carry. Those small choices add up to dignity, and dignity matters more than most things. So here's a simple question I'd love to ask you. What is one thing you've learned to let go of as you've gotten older? If you feel comfortable, share it down in the comments. Someone else reading might be walking through the very same thing, and your words could mean more to them than you realize. And if these kinds of quiet conversations feel meaningful to you, you're always welcome to subscribe and stay with us here. We'll keep sharing these little reflections about life, the kind you can sit with for a while, like an old friend at the kitchen table.